I came across a post by a creator here. He was lamenting the fact that he went to meet some old friend of his and he realized that they were boring, or they were bored of him, or bored of the whole interaction. They always needed an external stimulant in order to engage with each other, otherwise, they would be retreating to their phones. So I commented something and I said that one thing I've noticed in this current generation is that many people do not actually have a fully developed personality, nor do they have good communication skills. And this is why, in my opinion, people are failing at social interactions. So let's talk about this because this is something I've been wanting to talk about for the longest. And we're going to talk about two things. What are personalities and why, in my opinion, people are not succeeding at developing strong or any personality at all. But before we do, big caveat here, I am not a psychologist. All I'm about to say is the result of my own research as well as my own observations. I know I get to be wrong, but I'm also confident that I'm onto something here. So let's dive into this. What are personalities? I think there's a good frame that we need to always keep in mind when we think about personalities. It's the fact that the word, it comes from the Latin word persona, which used to mean the mask that actors would play or would wear during the social theaters. It's important to have that as a frame of reference. But in the wider world of psychology, your personality is the summation of three things: your ancestry, your heredity. The second thing is your learned habits, that is the amount of information that you have, but also the level of your engagement with the outside world. These three things are what contribute to forming your personality. So let's get into them. Your ancestry, your hereditary are things that we often do not control. We don't control where we're born. We don't control to whom we're born, who our father or our mothers are. We don't control these things. I usually consider them to be the cards that life deal to us. It doesn't mean that it's a fixed sentence. We have agency and we can change the course of our lives. But our ancestry has a certain way of influencing our intellectual development, but also our personality and character development. Think about it. We often say this person thinks a lot like their uncle or like their father, like their mother. That is what it means. Your ancestry is important. The second thing is your learned habit. And here there are two things to keep in mind. It's not just the breadth of information that you are taking every day. That definitely adds texture to your personality. But it's also your ability to think, your cognitive skills and your cognitive abilities. Because if you're someone who is used to thinking, who can use their brain, then you are someone who is trained to always look for solutions. That means you don't stay stuck when you have an obstacle. And this matters because it creates some curiosity. You are always looking for a way out or a way to move forward. So it's two things when we talk about learned habit. It's the breadth of knowledge, of information that you have, which adds texture, but also your cognitive skills and abilities, which give you a certain dexterity in conversations. The third thing that makes up your personality or that cooks it is how you relate with the outside world. Remember, we give and we receive. So how you communicate what you give to the outside world, and also how the platforms, the spaces that you use have an impact on how the world responds back to you and how you take it. So those three things are interconnected, and it is what is cooking your personality, our personalities. So why is it that people are not developing strong, or they are just not developing personalities at all? Well, we have to go back and look at these three things. Our ancestry, like I said, they are the cards that life has dealt to us. We don't often control them, but we do have agency. What happens sometimes is that people do not exercise that agency. But why do they not exercise that agency? Because of point two. Either their cognitive skills are not fully developed, or they have not acquired enough information that can prompt or trigger them to act on the agency, acquire and act on that agency. What do I mean? We've always heard it, and we're now aware of the fact that the cognitive intellectual skills of young adults and teenagers these days are rapidly decreasing because of the way that information is shared through digital media. We know that a lot of young people do not read at adequate level. And we have these trends happening which affect people's cognitive skills, which means that their personality development is already stunted because they are not absorbing enough information into this world. And why they aren't absorbing it is because they are not able to process information the right way. And then you look at the third thing, the way that people communicate and share with the outside world. I speak a lot in my channels about our relationship with digital media, but we already know there's a lot of research on how our engagement or constant engagement with digital spaces is altering our abilities to engage with the real world. We've heard of stories where young people are not able to speak to others just because they are used to chatting. We are used to the immediacy of swiping. You can swipe someone away on an application, but you can't do that in real life. So when you move from the virtual to the real, there is a disconnect because you can't apply the same parameters or the same principles, and so on and so forth. So when these three parameters that make up a personality are not well developed in someone, then we realize that people have stunted personality development. And that's why they can be in spaces with people who are interesting, but they are unable to engage because the parameters of engagement are different. The subjects of engagement are different. Remember, the breadth of knowledge is limited, but also the cognitive skills in order to engage with the other person on a broad range of subjects are missing. And as a result, you have just people who are there retreating back on their phones because that is what they are used to doing. This has already been a long video. I'm going to continue it later, but I hope this was useful. See you tomorrow, hopefully.